Chapter 4. Marvin Redpost is dead. "Are you really the lost Prince of Shampoon?" Judy Jasper asked Marvin as he walked into class. "What?" asked Marvin. I don't think so," he muttered. "Nick said you were," said Melanie. Travis and Kenny hurried over. "Nick said you're the lost Prince of Shampoon," said Kenny. "Is that true?" asked Travis. Before Marvin could answer, someone shoved him. It was Clarence. "You're not a prince," said Clarence. Clarence was the meanest kid in Marvin's class. "I didn't say I was," said Marvin. "You shouldn't push a prince, Clarence," said Judy. "He'll throw you in the dungeon." "That's right," said Melanie. "You're in big trouble, Clarence," said Travis. "I'm not scared," said Clarence. Nick put his arm around Marvin. "Hey, everybody," he said. "This is my best friend, Prince Robert." Marvin took his seat. He wished Nick hadn't told everybody he was Prince Robert. Casey Happleton sat down next to him. "Good morning, King Marvin," she said. Marvin didn't answer. "How are you today, King Marvin?" she asked. Casey had a ponytail that stuck out of the side of her head, not the back. "Did you do your homework, King Marvin?" asked Casey. "I'm not King Marvin," Marvin snapped. "I'm Prince Robert." He said it. It felt right. I'm Prince Robert. He had never liked the name Marvin. Everyone was staring at him. "Marvin?" asked Mrs. North. He stood up. "My name's not Marvin," he said. "I'm Prince Robert, the lost Prince of Shampoon." He knew in his bones it was true. He could feel his royal blood swirling around inside him. "I was kidnapped the day I was born," he said. "I was just a baby, but I can remember now. The kidnappers hid me in a hospital. Mr. and Mrs. Redpost took me home from the hospital by mistake." "You remember this?" asked Mrs. North. "From when you were 1 day old?" "It's kind of a haze," Marvin admitted. "I don't remember exactly what the kidnappers looked like. One of them had a black mustache." "Marvin has red hair," said Stuart. "Mr. and Mrs. Redpost have brown hair." "How do you explain that?" asked Nick. "Well, do any of your grandparents have red hair, Marvin?" asked Mrs. North. Marvin thought a moment. "No, they all have gray hair, or else they're bald. And I'm left-handed. You said that meant I have royal blood." His teacher smiled. "Well, let me ask you a question, Marvin. Prince Robert. Whatever happened to the real Marvin Redpost?" "Huh?" said Marvin. 9 years ago, Mr. and Mrs. Redpost had a baby. You say they took you home from the hospital by mistake. After, the kidnappers hid you in the hospital. What happened to their real baby?" "Some other parents took him home by mistake," suggested Nick. "Then what about their baby?" asked Mrs. North. "Other parents took him home," said Judy. "So parents just keep taking home the wrong babies from this hospital?" asked Mrs. North. "The real Marvin Redpost could have died," said Casey. "But then the people in the hospital discovered they had this extra baby, so they gave it to Mr. and Mrs. Redpost, and that way everybody was happy." "Well, I suppose anything is possible," said Mrs. North. "I watched the news last night," said Stuart. "The King of Shampoon was on. They gave a number to call. I wrote it down." "Well, there you go," said Mrs. North. "All you have to do is call that number." But at that moment, Marvin was feeling strangely sad. He was thinking about what Casey Happleton said. The real Marvin Redpost was dead.